My brother wants to play. I was 8 years old and my mega blocks were everything. I'd spend whole afternoons building massive towers, some so tall they nearly brushed the ceiling of my room just to knock them down and watch them scatter in a mess of colors. That afternoon, after toppling another one, I got bored. The sun was dipping low and the house felt heavy, like the air was holding its breath. I went to my mom in the kitchen to ask if I could go outside. "Clean up those blocks first," she said, not looking up from the dishes. I sighed and turned around, but I froze. My 5-year-old brother was in my room. The light was on, a dim flicker that barely reached the corners. He was kneeling, picking up the blocks with this eerie calm, his little hands moving like they weren't his own. He didn't make a sound, didn't even glance at me. "Mom, he's doing it for me," I yelled, almost laughing. She dropped the rag, peeked down the hall, and her face went white as a sheet. "There's no one there. Your brother's outside." I ran back. The light was off. The blocks were strewn everywhere, untouched. The air was cold, and I swear I smelled something sweet, like old candy. I picked it all up fast, hands shaking, and bolted outside. But that night, I woke up sweating. At the foot of my bed, a perfect, impossible tower made of my blocks, and a whisper, soft, from the shadows. "I want to play." Now, every night, the towers show up, and sometimes I hear his little footsteps.
The baby who wouldn't stop crying. My third kid was 3 weeks old when he started throwing up. Every time I fed him, it was a mess. Milk pouring out of his mouth and nose, his cries full of pain. A week went by like that, and I was terrified. I took him to the doctor, who gave me some medicine and said it'd fix him. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, my head spinning with worry, staring at the crib where he was breathing quietly. It was 2 a.m., and I started washing clothes to keep my hands busy. The sound of the washer hummed through the house when I heard it. A faint cry, like kids weeping somewhere far off. I checked the crib. My baby was asleep, lips shut tight. I peeked into my other kids' rooms, both snoring, buried under blankets. I went back to the living room, and the crying came again, sharper, like it was right beside me. I yelled to my husband, dozing on the couch. "Did he cry?" "No," he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. I stood in the hallway between the rooms, heart pounding. Then, a broken sob came from the living room. A woman, crying with a grief that stabbed through me. It wasn't normal, it was deep, desperate, like she knew something I didn't. I froze, the air thick around me, and a voice in my head screamed, "Take him to the hospital!" I grabbed him from the crib at 4 a.m., hands trembling. The doctors operated that morning. "If you'd waited longer, he wouldn't have made it," they said. My mom says it was an angel warning me. And some nights I still hear those sobs, like they're thanking me. The Chinese monk. I was living in China, and that night I had a nasty fight with my ex. I couldn't stay in the apartment. The air was thick with yelling and bitterness. I headed to a nearby mountain with an old temple at the top. It was my escape spot. Always empty, with a view of the valley that calmed me down. But this time, it was night, and the darkness swallowed everything. I climbed up with my phone's shaky light, barely illuminating the broken steps and branches that scratched at me. I got to the temple, exhausted, and collapsed on a wooden bench that reeked of damp rot. I cried until I couldn't anymore. And then I heard them. Slow, heavy footsteps coming into the temple, creaking across the floor. I felt a weight settle at the foot of the bench, and a cold, rough hand, like old cloth, brushed my ankle. I jolted up, shining my phone everywhere. Nothing. Just my ragged breathing and a sudden stench of stale incense that made me gag. I ran down the mountain, tripping over roots, heart racing. I told my Chinese friends later, and they exchanged weird looks. "No one goes up there," they said. They say a faceless monk wanders the temple, and he doesn't like being alone. Now, sometimes, I feel that touch on my feet when I sleep.
You, La Llorona. At my grandparents' house, the backyards were huge. There was a little farm with chickens and pigs, and beyond that, a patch of tall, spiky maguey plants. That's where my cousins, my siblings, and I played. 8 of us, ages 7 to 16, running around, hiding, laughing under the sun. That afternoon, as the sky turned orange, I had to use the bathroom. It was an old wooden shack near the creek, smelling of wet earth and something sour. The door wouldn't latch, so my cousins held it shut, giggling outside. I was in there, hurrying, when a scream ripped through the air. It wasn't one of us. It was long, unearthly, shredding my nerves. The laughter stopped, and I heard everyone's footsteps pounding away toward the house. I pushed the door to get out, but it wouldn't budge. I shoved harder, slamming my shoulder into it. Nothing. It felt like something was holding it from the outside. The scream kept going, endless, rattling inside my skull, and a coldness crawled up my spine like icy needles. I banged on the door, screaming, tears streaming down, sure I'd be trapped forever. Then it flew open on its own. I stumbled out, legs shaking, and ran to the yard. My cousins were there, pale as ghosts, some crying. We peeked down the path to the magueys, and there she was, a white figure floating over the creek, her black hair wriggling like it was alive. My grandpa came up, grim, and said, "That's La Llorona. Don't look her in the face or she'll take you." I never went back there, but sometimes I hear the creek whispering my name. The Hand. I was 16, and that night we'd just finished dinner as a family. The dining room was buzzing with chatter and clinking plates, but I wanted to watch TV in my room. The stairs were old, wood creaking under every step, and the hallway light only reached halfway up. I was climbing, hand on the rail, when it happened. A huge, scratchy hand grabbed my ankle and yanked hard. I crashed down on my knees, the thud echoing through the house. I screamed like crazy, heart exploding in my chest, tears blurring everything. My family rushed over. My dad tore down the stairs with a flashlight, searching every corner, but found nothing. We went up to my room together, me shaking, my ankle red and stinging. From the window I saw her, a young woman in a stained white gown, long curly hair, standing at the street corner. She had no feet, just floated there, head tilted like she was staring right at me. I screamed again, and my older sister ran to hug me. "I saw her too," she whispered, voice breaking. I fell asleep crying in her arms. It's been 12 years, and I still race up those stairs, because sometimes in the quiet, I feel that hand brushing me again. If these stories chilled you to the bone, don't let them fade. Subscribe to Mr. Night Terrors for more nightmares that cling to your soul. Sweet dreams.